Elliot, with the aspects as you look at impact investment in the bank at NAB and starting to really examine and do some research about emerging trends, what are you seeing happening out there in the market as people look at impact investment and measurement?
I think it's become quite clear in the impact investment space that there's a real need for a common language around impact measurement and how we talk about impact measurement. There's a lot of different ways of doing impact measurement and outcomes measurement. It's really about kind of coming to the core of, well, what is it for the different stakeholders involved in impact investment that's going to make a difference and help us understand what is the impact risk that we're assessing here. The other piece is really around making sure that we've got something that's comparable. One of the challenges that we've had is that the social return on investment work is fantastic for understanding the individual impact of the programs that we're looking at, but being able to compare across a range of different programs and understanding, as Corinne said, where do you best put your money to have the greatest impact has been quite difficult. So coming up with a common framework or a standardised set of measurements and indicators is going to be really important as we continue down this path.
And I think based also on that is we need something really simple and standardised, and one of the key issues in this space is the language is complex.
Yep.
So we kind of need to move it from more of an academic sphere into something that's very much more for a practitioner. And again, if you go back to the parallels of financial information and data, it took over 100 years for accounting standards to develop. We're trying to do this in
rapidly,
15, 10 years. And we're trying to measure something that the accounting standards gave up trying to measure. So the whole issue around externalities was left out because they didn't know how to value that. So now we're trying to say, okay, the bits that we left out before because they were too hard, how do we build a system for them? So really important piece of work. However, we have to be conscious not to overcomplicate because no one will use the frameworks.
Yeah.
If we stay on the emerging trends but go into some of the things that you've talked about relating to different stakeholders and different audience groups, what have you found? You know, you've now been able to play with some measurement things, a number of different frameworks or methodologies. What are you seeing as common aspects around different audiences and their needs for measurement or reporting?
I think if I look at the bank's investment in, say, community programs, the initial piece that's quite important is to actually engage the heart of people. So when you're looking at individuals, you need to, in that impact piece, tell the story. And I think it's essential to be able to tell the story from before to the after and to demonstrate that impact. But where that used to be sufficient enough to be able to get funding across the line, now we need the harder data and probably the numbers to kind of stack it up. So, again, there in that space, we're looking at different information, different audiences. But if we look at an investment angle, it's quite a different story whether it's a single investor or whether it's a super fund, they're going to have very different needs to satisfy because they're meeting the needs of more than one person. And particularly in this space, which does have such a strong values piece to it, we have to be aware that not everyone has the same values. So how do you aggregate this work so that people feel comfortable of, I can make an investment in that fund or organisation because it does good for the environment or it does good for homelessness?